Now there are some videos that as a YouTuber I really look forward to making. This is most definitely one of them because this is one of the most fun and vibrant watercolors I have ever used, and it has really warmed my heart towards liquid watercolor. Let's go ahead and do a quick deep dive into this amazing liquid watercolor ink. What's up guys, I'm J-Rod at BATTLEBRAWLERproductions. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. We craft amazing comic book style illustrations through a variety of different mediums. Today I'm doing something special as I'm finally revisiting the Dr. P. Martin's Radiant Watercolor ink. When I first took a look at this ink, I compared the black version to the black Hydrus, and I found that the Hydrus is just a little more consistent with reactivation and its overall performance. But that was a mistake on my part. I should have been comparing the colors because that's where the Radiant Concentrated Watercolor really shines and shows how amazing and different it is. The Hydrus is pretty much your standard liquid watercolor ink, while the Radiant Watercolor is a super saturation, having an insane color that just pops off the page. Really good for graphical work and for bright saturated colors. If you're looking to add some heavy tones into your watercolor, this is the one you want to use. And that wasn't apparent in my testing because again, I did take a look at it as it was just a black version, which isn't that much different. But taking a look at a colored version, we're really going to see this thing pop compared to other watercolors. Now I'm going to be honest with you guys, I had planned to pick up a few colors to play with, but I decided to just limit my palette to one, mainly because this is me and red's my favorite color, but also because I thought it'd be a really interesting challenge. And I'm going to compare this to some of my other red watercolor inks so you can see just how saturated this is. So let's go ahead and break out our watercolor sketchbook. Now this ink advertises that it can work in both an airbrush, a brush, and a dip pen or technical pen. Now while we're not going to make our illustration with this ink in a dip pen, I still want to see just kind of how it looks. And ooh, I love that red. That looks so good. Oh my gosh, that looks amazing. Absolutely love this deep dark red. Crimson is one of my favorite shades of red of all time. I absolutely love how that's going down. That's looking so good. Now again, we're not going to be using a dip pen with this liquid watercolor to craft our illustration, but I still wanted to test it. I really want to see how this is going to look like with our brush. So let's go ahead and get a good solid dip in. And ooh, I absolutely love that red. That looks so good. That looks amazing. Absolutely beautiful. Definitely looking a little lighter on camera. In person, this is a much more crimson red. Absolutely gorgeous. Again, I love crimson reds. I love reds that are deep and dark, but still not too dark, not too yellow, not too orange. Still has a little bit of lightness to it, but just kind of rides that fine line, and crimson hits that perfect for me, where it's dark, but not too dark. It's not too yellow, it's not too orange. That looks amazing. And of course, we can reactivate it. We can mix it with other watercolors. We can add water to it to lighten it up. Super versatile. Absolutely love how that color pops. That is such a saturated, gorgeous red. Let's go ahead and compare it to some other watercolors that we have. So here's what we're going to compare it to: my Winsor Newton Commons, which yes, I already sprayed and reactivate, and I also have some Winsor Newton Deep Red Professional watercolors right here on this palette. I think this will be a really fair comparison. I don't want to compare it to gouache. I think that wouldn't be fair, so let's go ahead and test those. So here's a couple of swatches of the Winsor Newton Commons, and we can see right off the bat the Commons from the half pans are not as intense. This is definitely more translucent. I think there's just a little bit more water mix in, while this has the liquid already in it. It's already thoroughly mixed. It's liquid watercolor, so we're not getting that water coming in and just lightening the pigments, but we are getting that with the half pans because of course we're using water to reactivate them. Let's do another quick swatch. Definitely a good solid comparison. Like, look at this. This one right here, we're getting a little bit of that intensity, but the Commons from the half pans are definitely a lot more translucent. They're not as vibrant or saturated, but I just think that's a really cool comparison directly side by side. I really like this shade of red. It looks absolutely amazing. Let's go ahead and compare it to our professional ones, the Winsor Newton Winsor Deep Red. Just a reminder, this is not fresh from the tube. This is reactivated, but I still think it will be a very fair, very nice comparison. And yeah, the deep red, definitely matching that intensity of the shade of red, but not matching the solidness of it. It's definitely more translucent. Again, this is reactivated. If it's straight from the tube, it would be more opaque and not as translucent. But we are kind of matching that intensity of crimson. I think that's really interesting. Again, just a lot more solid because we're using a lot more water to reactivate these, opposed to the liquid watercolor that uses none. It is already in a liquid form, so we don't have that lightening. With watercolor, because it's transparent, think of adding water as adding white if you were mixing your colors, and that's kind of what's happening here. But just comparing them like that, I absolutely love how the Radiant Watercolor looks. It looks so good in comparison. I absolutely love that intense color. Definitely makes me want to pick up more of these. Now, we haven't done our illustration, so maybe that opinion may change, but I'm really liking this intensity. So let's go ahead and play around with this a little bit more before we do the illustration. I kind of want to see what we can do and thin this out and mix it a little bit. Yeah, it's lifting and reactivating super well. So we can put this down and then start to roll with it and kind of push it and pull it, just like normal watercolor. I love that reactivation that watercolor offers. And now we can really thin it out and add that little bit of transparency into it while still keeping those intense colors. Let's go ahead and add like a little drops here and there, do a little wet on wet, which, yeah, fun fact, I don't incorporate a lot of wet on wet methods in my art. That's just because I like more solid colors, but when it comes to doing specialty effects or skies, it's a really great technique to go in and just add that little bit of watercolor chaos, because that's essentially what watercolor is. Controlled chaos. And ooh, I'm liking how that looks. That looks very organic. I don't know why, it kind of makes me think of scrambled eggs. I don't know if it's because I'm hungry or because something's wrong with my brain. You decide. We can put this down and then let's go ahead and get some extra water, so we can definitely play with this a lot. It's literally just watercolor in a liquid form. It's definitely something I didn't really appreciate as much when I first looked at it, but now I really see how versatile and how fun this can be. If we start to incorporate this with some of our other watercolors that we can now play with, oh man, the combinations that we can make are endless. But I think that's enough kind of just messing with it and just kind of playing with it. Let's go ahead and see what we can do with this in an illustration. Today's illustration is of Raph's bloody hand, and I love how this came out. It's a solid hand. I think this is going to be a really good illustration to use for this liquid watercolor ink. Even though I did make a mistake and illustrate this on Bristol paper instead of watercolor paper, I still think we'll be fine. We'll incorporate some layering techniques to really get this very solid. And of course, I'm going to do a little bit of mixed media work because, you know, it's me, guys. When have I not done mixed media? I mean, there's tons of examples on this channel of me not doing that, but it's what I like to do. So I'm going to use my favorite ink of all time, the Winsor Newton Black India ink, to do most of the line art and coloring, while I will also be using alcohol markers. Now, yes, I do know that India ink is not alcohol marker proof, but that's the point, because I want to try and get some dirty lines and incorporate that bleeding look technique with the watercolor. I think that'll look really cool. So let's go ahead and roll that super time lapse. Making this piece was super fun and very relaxing. I love inking, it's my favorite medium. I've said this hundreds of times on the channel, but alcohol markers and watercolors are my two favorite methods to color. Gouache a close second, and it depends on the day which one I like more, but they're both incredibly relaxing for me. So after doing all the ink work, which again, as a reminder, I purposely used an ink that was not alcohol marker proof to make the piece look more grungy as I started the coloring, because I wanted that messy feel for it to convey the emotion of the piece. After I did all the line art, I filled in all the areas of black, let it dry by using my heat gun to speed up the process, and then went in with my markers. Now, I knew I was going to do red for the arms, and that was pretty easy. However, I decided to do a purple for the background for two reasons. Originally, I thought it'd be cool to do a watercolor background, but since this is Bristol, it would definitely be stressing the Bristol more, and it would kind of make the blood not pop as much as I wanted it to. I really wanted this blood to pop like crazy, so I figured a purple background. Now, purple is not the opposite of red, but it is a complementary color, and I think it works really well. Plus, Raph's main villain, Pride, has a purple color scheme. You could interpret this piece that Raph's bleeding from a fight with Pride. Up to personal interpretation, but that was kind of the idea with it. And I had a lot of fun just layering the purples. Normally, when I do alcohol marker art, I am very purposeful with my layers and a lot more controlled. But here, I was just a lot more loose with it. I had a lot of fun layering all the purples. In fact, I actually ended up using up the last Spectre Noir marker I had. And it was just a lot of fun going in and doing this. piece. After getting good purple that I liked for the most part, I then went in and did the red on the hand, which was easy. Again, a combination of a few different reds and actually a couple of oranges in there just to make it pop a little more, and I started working on the blood. Now, I admit I could have been a lot more watercolor heavy with this piece. Again, it was on Bristol and I didn't want to stress the Bristol over in the piece itself, but I think the watercolor worked phenomenal for the blood. It gave it this very good flow to it. It pops really well. I love how crimson it is. It looks great for this effect, and layering it multiple times to get deeper values was great to do. I honestly could have kept doing this for hours and hours because it was so much fun and super enjoyable. The Radiant Watercolor, while great in our testing, was a absolute joy with a brush in this piece. I loved how well it went down. I had a lot of control with it. I could pick it up easy with my watercolor brushes. It was so much fun. I decided to put it over the markers that I colored on the hand so that I can just add a little bit more red popping to it and to unify it, and I love how it came out. This was a absolute treat to use, and I want to pick up more colors. I want to see what kind of greens, blues, purples, and oranges and yellows that this company has, because I was in heaven enjoying these solid colors. I personally prefer cooler colors in my artwork, but these bright, oversaturated colors, I can see so many different ways I can use this. And the fact that this can be used in an airbrush, while at first I didn't understand why you want to use a liquid watercolor in an airbrush, now I can definitely see some really cool applications that you can really push and use with this. So this liquid watercolor ink is so versatile. I absolutely love the results I got, but let's go ahead and take a look at this piece in all its finished glory. And we're done. And guys, I really like how this piece came out. It looks super good. It's very unique among the other pieces we did, and I think the watercolor ink and alcohol markers look exceptionally well together. This thicker border, while experimental, I really like how it looks. We may bring this back in some other pieces, but let me know what you guys think of this piece in the comment section down below. I love your guys' feedback because not only does it make me a better artist, also makes me a better content creator. But putting the piece to the side, let's talk about my final thoughts. I have to say right off bat, my opinion on these have changed greatly. I am in love with the Dr. P. Martin's Radiant Concentrated Watercolor. I absolutely love it, and as I mentioned in the time lapse, I will be picking up more colors. I think these are incredibly versatile and super awesome. Just all the different ways you can use them right off the bat. You can mix them with your normal watercolors. You can go in and layer them on top of other mediums and other watercolors. And while I originally did compare it to the Hydrus, and I was comparing a black Radiant Watercolor to a black Hydrus one, I'd say there wasn't really much difference. The Hydrus really won because it was just a little more easy to reactivate. It was easier to play with. But seeing what this offers, seeing that the Radiant Concentrated offers these beautiful colors that I knew I would like, but I didn't know I would love so much, has just blown me away. I really think that these are something special, and if you're a watercolor artist, if you're an inker, you gotta have this in your tool belt. If you want those brighter colors, you want to do graphical art, if you're looking for heavy saturation, this is where it's at. If you're looking for normal colors, something a little more traditional, the Hydrus is where it's at. But I'm gonna re-rate this ink. This is going to get a 9 out of 10 on my scale 1 to 10. Only thing stopping it from getting a 10 out of 10 is because it's a little more difficult to reactivate, and some people aren't going to be looking for those intense colors. But as I mentioned before, I love them. I'm going to be grabbing some more in the future, so look forward to more art we're going to make with these. And again, they're super versatile. I think they were great. If they just reactivate a little better like how the Hydrus does or how normal watercolors do, it would get a 10 out of 10. Seriously, this is a great product. Definitely pick it up and add it to your tool belt. But that's my opinion, and I love to hear your guys' comment section down below. As I've mentioned multiple times, I love hearing your guys' feedback. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel for more art and animation based content, and remember, I'm J Rod at BLACKEST. I draw the power in my own soul, and thank you all so much for watching.